But first, I'm going to show you frightening footage in a second of hate preaching in our suburbs, including by a man who used to tell Muslims here to fight for the Islamic State and is still preaching. Now, kill the Jews. This is footage that proves our politicians have been so reckless with your safety. Now, as I said, the Prime Minister is in China. It's an important meeting, I get it, but it's also his 18th foreign trip in just 18 months, and he'll be off on 2 more trips just this month alone. And the question now is whether Anthony Albanese is fiddling overseas while this country is burning, and not just from the cost of living crisis. You see, back here at home, we had a dozen Australian Palestinians land in Sydney Airport last night after being let out of Gaza. That's run by the Hamas terrorist group and is at war with Israel. And some started this chant.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
I don't know that that's what we need right now, is it? I mean, more people here adding to the tension that already has many Australian Jews in fear and desperately looking for leadership from their government. And that chant, when Hamas says Palestine must be free as well, what it means Israel must be wiped off the face of the earth. So I'm kind of hoping that the Albanese government has screened very carefully these returnees, given that some actually chose to live under Hamas rule. And I say all that because I think we have been naive or blind for too long, and it's now all coming together in an explosive cocktail. I mean, first we've had mass immigration, bringing in so many people, including more than 120,000 Muslims in just 5 years. Second, the promotion of multiculturalism, telling immigrants, no matter what country they're from, keep your culture. And third, teaching migrants that Australia is racist, shameful, genocidal even. Why would you give it loyalty to a country like that? And I'm now going to show you these videos which tell you how it's all coming together in just one Islamic centre in Sydney, the Al Medina Dawah Centre. Now that centre is in the news right now because of one speaker people have found there, when in fact, as I'm going to show you tonight, there are a few more, including an Islamic State supporter, that should make you worry perhaps even more about what's being preached in places like this and why it's been allowed to go on for so long. Now, this one preacher that the police are now looking into is someone identified only as Brother Ishmael, who is fired up by this Hamas war on Israel and is calling for Jihad, for Muslims to rally to the black battle flag of Islam.
The flag that they talk about that belongs and a symbol for ISIS and Tanzim al-Qaeda. This is the flag of the Muslims. The national flag is not our flag. Raise up the flag of La ilaha illallah so you die as a martyr. If the Australian government like it or not, if the ASIO likes it or not, if they want to deport me from Australia or not, the jihad is the solution.
As you saw, a child there to listen to all that. And be clear, this Brother Ishmael warned Australians as well, do not push him.
You are creating a danger to the national security system in Australia. Now, when you start labeling the Muslims as terrorists, by you pushing us into the corner, you're creating a threat for the national security system.
Okay, so police are now investigating this guy. But I want to know why not one Islamic group has denounced this preaching, this threat. In fact, I'm still wondering why I haven't heard a single Australian Muslim organisation denounce the horrific and barbaric slaughter of 1,400 Jews in Israel on October 7. Not a single one. But the problem here is that at this same Al Medina Dawah Centre in Sydney, there was actually a celebration by another speaker, a preacher called Abu Usaid, who used to tell Australians to go fight for the Islamic State, which, as you know, is another incredibly violent Islamist group.
The blame here is on the Israelis themselves. They are the invaders, they are the oppressors, they are the colonizers. Don't blame a people who you have bullied for almost 100 years. And when they have had enough, they fight back using your very same tactics. And what a happy sight it was to see that the Muslims of Palestine Palestine were finally happy. And the Muslims around the world felt comfort in this.
Oh, finally happy at the slaughter. And Abu Usaid had a warning to Jews, and he cited a passage in the sacred Islamic hadith that says, kill them.
To the invading Jews we say, by Allah, the day you will be kicked out of Palestine is coming. A day when the stones and the trees will speak and say, O Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him.
Now, all this is being openly preached at a Sydney Islamic Centre, and one that runs a Saturday school for the kids. And again, here is that preacher sharing his utter hatred of the Jews, referring to those now fighting the terrorists of Gaza.
Our brothers and sisters in Gaza are being killed, annihilated by the descendants of apes and monkeys, of swine and monkeys.
Now, these speakers say other Muslim groups are too scared, at least of opposition leader Peter Dutton, to speak out as well along these same lines.
The ones who claim that they fear no one but Allah, but yet they close their mouth when Peter Dutton threatened them to deport them from Australia.
I heard some hours of these tapes. I didn't hear any speakers say they were scared of Labor. But a last point. A couple of speakers at this Sydney Centre said, how dare Australians criticise them when Australia was so racist to Aborigines, because they have now bought that anti-Australia propaganda that's recklessly pushed by the left, by politicians, academics, journalists, and of course the Yes campaign for The Voice.
Now we say to every individual who says about Hamas is terrorist, did you really forget your dark history? Did you really forget your ancestors, what they did to the native people in this country? How they killed them and how they killed their children? How they raped their women to change their color?
But look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposed them and their friend, the Prime Minister himself. He was exposed for that lie, showed his hypocrisy to the indigenous people of Palestine. They're white invaders, colonizers, the Jews, and are now doing what they are doing with the support of every Western democratic government. As the Prime Minister of Australia said, it supports Israel and its right to defend itself. The Palestinian people are still living their invasion day. It's just not on the date of the 26th of January.
The linking of those two conflicts, the Aboriginal movement here to the war in Gaza, I tell you, that is so lethally dangerous. And I tell you, Aboriginal activists are doing the same thing. But this hatred of Australia, we are now paying the price for teaching new immigrants to despise this country. And you can see the terrible danger now that our politicians have imported and coached. The hatreds now that make so many Jews here fear for their safety, for their children's safety. And where is the Prime Minister? Why isn't he offering the leadership here that we need? Now, I used to be critical of Scott Morrison when he was Prime Minister. He ran from the culture wars that he should have fought. But all credit to him now. He's just visited Israel with former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to stand with Israel, to point out that its fate as a Western civilization is tied to ours, and to warn us against this terrible Jew hatred that's now left almost unchallenged in Australia.
Those expressions of hate and against Jewish people, this is what it becomes, what we are seeing around us here today. That's why it can't be tolerated in its most smallest form, because it starts as a mustard seed and it grows into this horror.
Why hasn't Anthony Albanese said anything like that when we've got calls to even kill Jews being openly preached back at home?